The next topic we wanted to touch on very quickly was Apple's Vision Pro is apparently not succeeding. There's an article here on Gizmodo saying Apple is struggling to make us care about a weaker, cheaper Vision Pro. All reports suggest that the sales aren't fantastic, the demand and engagement isn't fantastic, and that they recently pulled the plug on Apple Vision Pro 2 in favor of a cheaper, probably Apple Vision, which is, the not Pro version. And, it's yet to be seen if anyone will even care about that. I thought this was interesting, guys, because it speaks to something we talk a lot about on the EDU episodes that Yaniv, you and I talk about endlessly on LinkedIn, which is that your first product is not going to succeed. Even if you're Apple, it takes putting something in the world and iterating in order for you to succeed. And this is true of the iPhone. It was not born fully formed. And it's true of the iPad as well. And it's, I think, going to be true of the Vision Pro. And I think it speaks to this idea that, as a founder, you can't just do MVP, pivot, MVP, pivot. You need to do MVP, grind, polish, and give your initial idea a chance to succeed. What do you guys think about the Vision Pro, about AR, VR, and where this might all be headed in the future and what it means for founders?
When you say the numbers aren't fantastic, I'd say that probably what's happening here is they're more than not fantastic. They're really bad. And I think that what Apple's doing makes sense, right? That it was just too expensive, too heavy, too capable. And the next step being, like you said, an Apple Vision. The clue is in the name. Calling it Apple Vision Pro implies that there'll be an Apple Vision in the same way that you've got an iPad Pro and a regular iPad, and you've got a MacBook Pro and a regular MacBook. There was always going to be an Apple Vision. And it seems to me like they've deprioritized the Vision Pro in favor of the Vision. Why exactly? I don't know. I think the price was probably too much of a barrier. The weight was too much of a barrier. But I did have one other thought on this, Chris, which is we talked a couple of episodes ago about the Rabbit AI device and the Humane AI pin and how a lot of the problem with them, which were basically products that were massively panned, is that they took something that was really a developer preview or a hobbyist device and tried to sell it as a mainstream consumer device, and it simply was not ready. The Apple Vision Pro, I would say, was obviously way more polished than those things, but I think it was not ready in a different way. The price to value, the sort of comfort, the sort of general consumer readiness of it was simply not there. And so I think it was maybe a slight misstep by Apple to release this as a mainstream product rather than as some sort of developer preview, something or other like that, where I think the reception would have been quite different because it is a magical piece of tech. I've tried one. It is incredible, but it's not ready for that sort of consumer prime time. And if you'll recall Google's attempt in this space years ago, Google Glass, ultimately that was a dead end. It was not a successful product. But I'll say the one thing they did right is for years, they called it a developer preview so that at least the embarrassment, or you could say, the failure of Google Glass didn't bleed over into regular people spending thousands of dollars on these bits of tech that were not ready for regular consumer usage. And so I am still moderately bullish on the Apple Vision Pro sort of series. I don't think Apple will give up easily. I think the technology is amazing. I think once you get the exact UX right, once you get the size and weight and all of that right, it will be a killer device. But I think they got a bit ahead of their skis, and that's what we're seeing now.
I think ultimately people don't want to be in the office anymore, and they don't want to have a computer pancake to their face.
I think that's a way too broad statement.
I think there's a general trend amongst the, whatever you call them, Gen, whatever they're called now. They want to be at home. They want to be in, what do you say?
I just don't agree with that.
Why not?
Because I talk to Gen Z folks and they want to be in the office and they want to socialize, and the data supports that. So I just think that's not an accurate statement.
I mean, the sense that I get from a lot of people I'm seeing around the world is they're enjoying their freedom. They're enjoying their ability to travel. They're enjoying their ability to be in Thailand or Dubai or wherever they are. And a lot of people moved out of Silicon Valley feeling like they could drop the mic and go somewhere else. And there are companies who are demanding, begging, insisting that their employees come back to the office, and they don't want to. They don't want to be in these enclosed spaces that are dedicated to work. They want to be part of nature or their own personal space or freedom to work from a co-working space or a cafe. And I think shoving a computer to your face is even more oppressive and cutting you off from nature and the world. And I think that's a counter trend to what people are trying to do. They're trying to integrate themselves into their space versus the other way around. And so I think VR is a difficult value prop. It's a difficult thing to sell people, especially for productivity versus gaming. I'm becoming more bullish on the idea that AR and smart glasses are the immediate term future for most people most of the time. And I think AI makes that even more true when you want to have a heads-up display or a heads-up camera to see the world and to load that into context. We talk a lot about how Apple doesn't want to be first, they want to be best. But in this case, I think Meta, having been in this for a long time, have had the opportunity to learn from the mistake of VR being their only bet and learn about the opportunity of smart glasses. And I think that they're a little ahead of the curve on the glasses side. And I think that's where there's a broader fit. The image I just have in my head is just people connected to their environment in spaces that are more personal and more balanced. And hermetically sealed boxes in an office is not that. And having a computer smashed to your face is not that. Having delightful devices that you can they're light and they're easily throw in a backpack and keep going feels to me like where people want to go.
I could not possibly disagree more with your broad sweeping generalizations that are not tied to the reality of the data or the way people behave. Like you say, people want to be out in nature more, want to be connected to the environment. Everyone's fucking addicted to these things, right? Like there is no way it is true that people, as a broad movement, of course you can find these niche movements, Chris, but like as a broad movement, people are not moving post-technologically. Young people are actually really enjoying returning to the office, having human connection, actually. Where do AR glasses fit into all of this? And remember, Apple Vision Pro is AR, not VR, primarily. That is where all their innovation is. And I think exactly what it does is it actually does allow more connection, because instead of like everyone walking down the street hurting their C3, C4 vertebrae because they're staring down at their phones the whole time and like bumping into walls, they can have their heads up and they can have their virtual world and their real world actually combined. And so the issue with the Apple Vision Pro was simply the tech wasn't quite there yet, not that the form factor doesn't fit in with the vision that you were describing. And, you know, I think the idea of having a computer strapped to your face being oppressive, like if people were oppressed by their computers, then they wouldn't be staring at their phones the whole time. So I just disagree with that take.
Hang on, I didn't say people are throwing away their technology. I'm saying people are throwing away their work. Let's just look at these headlines, right? Meta mandates employees to return to the office, threatens termination for non-compliance. Amazon enforces strict RTO policies, urges employees to relocate to a hub office. Google intensifies RTO efforts, right? Salesforce requires employees to return to the office 3 days a week. I mean, this is a massive trend of people saying fuck you to employers and screw this 9 to 5 commute to work nonsense. I want to live in an environment that is mine, that is personal, that is not oppressive, that is not LED lights and whatever. I think that is an obvious trend. I'm not saying that they're abandoning their devices.
You're projecting. I think the blind spot here is actually a generational one. People in their late 30s and 40s with young children, yeah, they want to stay at home. And they assume that people younger than them will also want to stay at home. That's not actually the case, right? And so I think it is much more complex than that. Different strokes for different folks. But to say there's a universal movement away from working in the office, I think actually, you know, that it's not playing out.
I think regardless of the fascinating debate whether people want to stay at home or go to the office, which we should have at a later stage, I want to talk about the technology itself. I think that virtual reality is an outcome that I don't want to see, other than playing games. I don't want us to be in an immersive world of just virtual reality, because I think then we will, like history shows, that we will adopt it and not like be in actual reality. And I hate seeing all these people with their phones attached to their faces all the time. And if they have something that they could attach more, they will attach more. So I don't want VR, or at least not in the way it's incarnated right now. AR is super interesting because I can see a lot of interesting use cases for AR, both in business and in gaming. And I really want that outcome. I want to be able to, even if I'm in nature, to Chris's point, and I see a new bird, I want information on that bird to surface above it so I know more about it. So I really want the use case of AR, but I think there's a lot of pain, both metaphorically and physically, in using those devices right now. That's the problem. The problem is that it's taking a lot of time, and it is possibly the computation, and there's some physical problems that we will not be able to solve in order to do that. I love the glasses, but I don't think you'll be able to augment on regular glasses that look like yours, Chris, all that information. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that there's this interesting trend that I'm observing about people wanting more personal space and more balance in their lives. And I think that's a young trend and an old person's trend. And VR is counter that trend. I don't think it's lightweight enough. I think it's too immersive, too oppressive, and too all-encompassing. I think the answer is likely to going to be built from smart glasses up rather than VR down. Amir, you talked about, whether you'll be able to project anything on these glasses. I think if you were to say to somebody, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 40 years ago, hey, you can have a supercomputer in your pocket. It'll basically be a thin piece of glass. They'll go, oh, you're crazy. Those transistors will never fit in there, right? I think the exponentials on top of exponentials will see us presenting some amount of data on the glass with some amount of reasonable form factor in a reasonable amount of time. But as I've observed in previous episodes, I think AI combined with a camera and combined with auditory input, audio input output, I think obviates, minimizes the need to project things onto the glass. And I think generation after generation of smart glasses will be the trend, is my guess. That's my bet. That's my prediction. We'll see how it plays out.
You should be a VC.
Okay, folks, Chris and I had some spicy disagreements on this one, but what's your take? Do you think strapping a computer to your face is oppressive or the future? Let us know in the comments.